One. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first episode of the We Got Game or WGG podcast. My name is Nick, and this podcast will just be discussing the NHL community within We Got Game, a bunch of different We Got Game tournaments, and a bunch of other stuff that WGG produces. So today on the first episode, I have a very special guest with me today. The captain of the WGG Tropics, a team that We Got Game sponsors, known as Tropics White in the community. I know him as Chris. So, Chris, what is up? Welcome to the podcast, man.
What is up? Thank you very much for having me. Hopefully, can kick off with a good first episode. And moving forward, can get some more of the guys in here and just kind of get to know everyone.
For sure. So, the Tropics are a pretty successful NHL team, you could say. How do the Tropics come to be? How long have they been a team for, that kind of stuff? So get into that.
So pretty much, I think NHL 12 was the first time like EASHL was put into NHL Game, and by NHL 13, it was just me and a buddy from back in high school or whatever. Me and him started playing a bit, and we kind of had like this weird triangle. Like we had like Chad, who's on our team, and our best friend at the time. It was just us three and just kind of messing around. And the team name completely just came out of the fact that like we always watch stupid movies together. The Will Ferrell semi-pro, the orange and teal kind of look good together, and for whatever reason, it just stuck, and we just kept being the Tropics. So NHL 13 was kind of like the creation of it all, but back then we were just kind of goofing around. Nothing was ever serious. But that's kind of how everyone starts out, I guess, probably is, just goofing around and just kind of 100%. Takes it off somewhere. But yeah, the name just completely comes from, the movie that we found funny. And then probably one of the main reasons why we stuck with it was just because we the colors just matched, and no one else really used those colors. So it kind of became like our own kind of trademark thing.
So, Chris, what's something you want, you told me some of, your life story, which is pretty crazy. So, I think, what is something, I think, people that are watching, they want to get to know the team, but they also want to get to know, the players. So, where did you come from? How did you get to where you're now, kind of thing. So, what's your kind of life story, and how did you come to liking NHL and playing it?
Yeah, so we'll make it as brief as possible here. Pretty much, I was born in Sarnia. My parents divorced before I can remember. Mom lived Strathroy, just outside of London, and pretty much just split my time growing up there. By the time I turned, I think it was about 8 years old, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, was sick all the time. Had a couple, minor surgeries as a kid, and then when I turned 16, ended up getting bacterial meningitis or something, and that again, I was playing sports all the time when I was growing up as a kid, and then even when I was sick with the whole Crohn's thing, I was still, forced my mom to take me out to the hockey game. I was just, that's the only thing that ever brought me any joy, was just playing sports all the time. And after the meningitis thing happened, that pretty much, cut off any contact sport. That pretty much cut me out of, and it was a really, really big thing for me. And then, so after the sports were taken away, it completely put me on a downward spiral.
Yeah.
After high school, my whole life was just revolved around sports. That's the only thing I had. And then when that was taken away, between countless surgeries for Crohn's and the meningitis, just countless surgeries. They put you on all sorts of medications. Ended up getting extremely addicted into, the pills and opiates, stuff like that. And for the longest time, because I was so sick, it kind of went under the radar. The only way that got me through it, I started, after I got clean, I ended up having a really bad surgery again. Was cut open from chest to, pretty much bottom of your stomach.
Yeah.
Got put back on pills again, started getting bad. And then after, your doctor gives you a prescription, and like shorter and shorter it starts. A month subscription's gone in like a week,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have that 3 week span where it's like
Yep.
you got to figure it out. Started selling drugs, started doing the whole lifestyle, and I ended up getting stabbed in my liver at my apartment in London. At that point, I was a master at manipulating people, so the doctors, just to believe my story, they gave me more pills, and the pills made it so I could tolerate normal life. I was able to go to work 9 to 5 because I would just be high all day, and the whole girlfriend situation, the same thing.
Yeah.
And not a lot of people, even Chad, who's my best friend in real life, he probably doesn't even know half this stuff, just because it's something I was really embarrassed about. I don't want people to know, and even to this point, I mean, there might be 2 or 3 people in this whole world that knows that's the story that happened. And it was a really rough time, and now, with this gaming thing, it's given me an outlet to kind of at least put some of that stuff that I used to get from playing real sports, and the dedication, the teamwork, you
Yeah.
build bonds. Like, people can say, it's just a game, all that stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
when it comes down to it, it is just a game. Like some people just play it an hour a week, some people play it 10 hours a day. It ranges. For me, it's almost to the point where I dedicate, a lot of my sobriety and, staying alive through this whole thing off the fact that I had the Tropics with me. I had Chad
Yep.
there. I had something to, when I wasn't, doing real world stuff, I could escape. And it's one of those things where, you can't even almost put it into words, but it's like the way that everything lined up for me to get to this spot. It's, like I said, there's no word to describe it. I feel so lucky, and like I knew Dave before. It was shortly after I met Dave at the London Nightsland.
Yep.
That's when shortly after I fell apart. I hope that if other people are in the same situation, I'm not a perfect person. I'm probably one of the worst people to talk to about this stuff. But at the same time, like, if there's any way that I could help someone who is in my shoes back, even just one person, it's a really weird feeling, because you think you're all alone. You think that you're the only one going through these problems. Like, yeah, I understand that these people are drug addicts, but my situation is different.
Mm-hmm.
You try and convince yourself, and to be honest, it's just more ways to make excuses to stay high. And I just, something that I've started to kind of become more open about, so I can kind of get over it myself as well. And but yeah, there's a large portion of why I am still here, which I dedicate to Chad, the Tropics, and Dave, and everyone who's been helping us out. Like, it's stuff like that why I'm still here, I think. And it's I dedicate a lot to it. So again, this is, I can't thank those guys enough.
So now, switching gears here, let's get into the Tropics. Chris did touch on it a bit of how, like, a little bit of a history lesson on them. But let's get into the Tropics, and maybe yours specifically, the NHL community involvement in tournaments and things like you guys are you guys are a team that's like really synonymous with the NHL community. So I'm curious how that came to be.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is like, for the longest time we just played a lot because we had fun with it. We didn't really get involved in the competitive atmosphere, like any league stuff like that, up until maybe NHL 17-ish. So from NHL 13 to 17, we were just playing it a lot because we had fun with it. We didn't even know that people compared our, CR back then, or RP now. We would play with a random person to fill in, and they would talk about it. We had no idea what they're talking about, right? So
Yeah.
It kind of became a thing that slowly built. It was mostly, Chad is kind of unique in a way where, he kind of just followed along with whatever. If I found a tournament, it's like, hey, this is how much it is, he would just pay and show up.
Yeah.
So he kind of had like a behind the scenes role for the team. But yeah, so like once we started kind of playing in, a few tournaments, a few leagues here and there, we were noticing that we were getting really close to beating like top tier teams, which
Mm-hmm.
like would just run us over in the past.
Yeah.
You know, NHL 19, we started getting more recognized. We started doing a couple small leagues, like 4-week leagues, even small 1-day tournaments. Just like kind of like winner take all, like 6 teams would just make like a private tournament, just
Yeah.
small stuff. And then NHL, I think, like I said, I think our best year was NHL 20 by far. We got first on the threes leaderboard for the year. We got first. I'm pretty sure we got first for like overall the whole year.
Mm-hmm.
He went to the London Knights land, played against some like top level guys. People want to see players making the plays. You want to see a human outthinking another human. The thing I would say, when you play Ultimate Team or even ones, whatever, there's 12 players on the ice and
Yeah.
there's only 2 people.
Yeah.
So the dictation of the game, it's so much based off like an AI machine. Where if you play, with humans, like there's obviously still gonna be cheese on either
Yeah.
side.
Yeah.
There's gonna be some pros that ones might have that the other one doesn't,
Mm-hmm.
vice versa. But the word like competitive gaming or esports, it's who's the best team, who's the best players,
Yeah.
and whenever you have things out of your control dictating the game, it takes away from that. I think one of the main reasons why everyone had so much fun with this past weekend's tournament was that there was no, Dave has this way where he gets everyone going in one direction. Like if people start butting heads, he's just there's none of it, right? Like
Yeah.
he gets the respect right away and says, listen, we're happy to have you guys, but we're here to play a game. All the other stuff, leave it at home. Like don't
Mm-hmm.
do it. And when you play in leagues like LG or even like the Columbus tournament that's going on right now, there's nonstop in the discords and the chats, just always back and forth with each other. And it's just like, no one's going to benefit from this. There's no companies
Yeah.
that are going to see something like that, see like the name calling, the racial slurs, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
No one's going to see that and be like, you know what, I'm Microsoft. I want to sponsor
Yeah.
an event because this,
Exactly. Yeah.
you're not going to take that risk on them. Like, it doesn't make sense to.
You mentioned the tournament that happened this past weekend, so I want to talk about that a little bit. Unfortunately, you guys didn't play it to the standards you guys wanted to. There's a couple. Although, despite that tournament was really, really, really competitive. You had the best teams
I
there.
kept on saying it. By far the most. I've done 40 to 50 tournaments, maybe around there.
Yeah.
I've never seen a list where it's like 16 teams and 10 of them could win, and it would be like, no,
Yeah.
I can understand how they won.
Yeah.
It's insane, right? So, yeah. So I mean, like to get top, we got 4th, which I mean isn't what we wanted, but at least we had good games that were still like kind of like shiny moments, but we also had our games like versus No Cap, for example, where we just didn't get anything going and stuff we need to work on.
We're back, some technical difficulties, but Chris was just discussing how like competitive that tournament was. Some big top of leaderboard teams you had, like the Mutts, the Nationals, No Cap, you guys obviously. Like it's definitely one of the most competitive things I've seen in it. Like when you see the highest tournaments, just some games were so close. Like your game that went to overtime was just insane.
Yeah, I mean, and that was the thing. Like, and the thing about Odie's team, like Odie doesn't play like clubs that much. I mean, like he plays the game to a level where it's it's a high level. So his team, he has friends that are high level. So like even though some of the teams might not have been ranked high up in threes, like the players themselves was off. Like it was just ridiculous how competitive it was. And it's like we wanted it to be fair, so we made the pools and everything shuffled.
Yeah.
We didn't not to make an excuse, the better team definitely won. We definitely didn't get the best of luck in our pools and like the way it broke down, because we ended up playing Nationals in our pool.
Yep.
And then
they're pretty good.
Out of the bracket, like in the double elimination bracket, we play against the team that's battling us for first and second in the leader.
Yeah.
So we're playing in our first 4 games, we played 2 top 3 games. So it's like
Yeah.
it was tough.
One thing I want to ask is like every time the playoffs start, right? You know how it's like completely changed from what it was in 20. Like 20, you had the two the
4 games.
yeah, the double elimination. You have to win 4 in a row, and now it's like for like 2 weeks you're just playing outside a bunch of games. It's like the more games you play, the more like wins you get, the kind of thing. So what I want to know is like which one do you prefer, and like what's your kind of mindset when playoffs roll up?
This year, it's definitely getting people to play more. Like people are more in a competitive state to actually grind and get it. So it's giving players something to play for, which is all we really want.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good thing. I just think that there's got to be a better way to do it than the way that they're doing.
Yeah.
But I understand it's their first year doing it. It makes sense. The only issue I'm having is like, for example, last night it was us and Nationals battling out for first and second for Elite Cup Season 4.
Mm-hmm.
And we played from like 9 p.m. to like 11.
Yeah.
We got maybe 300, 400 points. And we won like all of our games. We played like 15 games or so. And then we got within like 100 points in Nationals. We're right there, and like the window's closing in like 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
They come on, play 2 games, and they got 350 points. So they got in 2 games, and they got done in 25 minutes. It's like, so there's it's almost like another thing, like how I was saying about computers in the game, how like it kind of takes away something you can control. Like, it just sucks that it can come down to like who's going to get the luckier matchmaking. Because we were getting the one team we beat, we literally got 3 points.
Yeah.
And it's like, and if they don't quit, that's 20 minutes for
wasted.
Like,
Yeah. One thing for them is like, also like in general, the player base is pretty small. Like, let's be honest. Compared to like all other games, like sometimes when like I'm playing sixes at like 5 p.m., I'll be sitting for like 10 minutes trying to find a game, or like it'll match us up against like a sixes team with 2 people, and like I don't know who wants to play that. Like it's not that fun. So I don't know how they would, like, you can't even do like skill based matchmaking because not many, let's say like a bunch of division 1 teams might not be on at the same time to match them against each other. So I guess it's like another thing they would have to kind of work on, but like hopefully with next gen they can fix it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard problem to fix. I mean, the best way to solve it, you see these games going cross platform.
Yeah.
In my opinion, that's mainly the only, because then you double, I mean, like all the Xbox teams on top of all the like mixing it together.
Exactly.
I think that's your best way of doing it, and that's your best way to grow games. Like, games don't understand. Like, if, for example, we just ran a PlayStation tournament last weekend.
Yeah.
Imagine how much easier it would have been able to do to find like 24 teams if we added both.
Yep, exactly.
Right? So, I mean, it's something where I think games are finally now starting to understand, like, okay, we're losing by keeping them separate.
Mm-hmm.
Let's work with our competitor, make it so everyone's on one, and we'll all benefit from it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way moving forward.
Going into our next segment, this segment is sponsored by Whoosh here. If you want to keep your electronics squeaky clean, purchase some Whoosh. Chris has some in the background too. So yeah, cop on that Whoosh. So what I want to ask you is, this is our segment called favorite moment or like favorite play. So one thing I want to ask is like, what's like one of like your favorite plays? Like if you could think of one that you kind of have like remembered, or one that you clipped, like what's kind of like the favorite one you've done?
Well, so I always say this, back in NHL 14, like in the previous gen, I used to, like, the deking system it makes no sense that like 8 years ago, the deke system that they used to have is more, like, has more depth than like what we have now.
Yeah.
So we used to get this goal where, we would do like this one-hander type move from like behind the net.
Yeah.
So I mean, those were, just the one-handers in general. If anyone remembers playing back on like the previous gen, you could do like those big one-handed windmill.
Yeah.
Like you could do so much more with it.
Yep.
And then when you compare it to the one-hander move that you have in like today's NHLs, it's just not. I mean, even if you score it, like no one's really like. Does anyone really care? Like,
Especially
last year,
in
the year
like
before, it was like the easy goal. That was like the glitch goal on computer goalies. Like,
yep.
it would work every time.
Say it's like a penalty shot, you need to score. What and like it's not like what's your go-to right there?
Yeah. So the biggest thing when you're playing in a tournament, because you're always gonna be playing against human goalies.
Yeah.
So the thing that a lot of people might not notice is when you see us take one, or at least me, for example, the biggest thing is you have to kind of determine if he's going to dive at you or not.
Yep.
So anyone who's seen like Patrick Kane's style penalty shot where he just skates up, slams on the brakes, and kind of waits the goalie out.
Yeah.
Now, I've found a kind of way to do it similar to that, where when I slam on the brakes, if they're going to dive, then that's usually when they'll do it. So I can just get around them, and then if they don't dive, they're kind of just standing in front of you. Then you just kind of wait them out.
Yeah.
Right. So usually that's the best bet. If you know that they're not going to do a flying poke check on you, I've been using the stride deke that not a lot of people actually use for whatever reason. Where you glide and hold L1 and just click left or right.
Yeah.
You get a good stride. You get good separation. So those are the two that I at least go for on, most of my penalty shots at least.
Yeah. So shout out Whoosh for sponsoring that segment. Yeah, you can check them out. So for the next segment, this one is sponsored by Gamer Goo. Shout out Gamer Goo.
Betty Sue and her opponent Drew are intensely playing Zombie Wall 2. Betty Sue, I'm drenched with dew. My hands feel like they've been dipped in fondue. Of course they do, Drew, you bumbling buckaroo. You're not using Gamer Goo. A non-slip lotion, a hand cream for you. 3 lovely scents worth your review. Peppermint, orange peel, and cinnamon. Ooh, you'll get energy and focus that's long overdue. Don't believe us? Just ask
Justin Clark. The chemistry of Gamer Goo involved
not only for gaming, but stick sports too. Could you imagine a match without Gamer Goo? Drew placed his order for Gamer Goo. They hugged it out, stuck together like glue, but they're brother and sister, and that's kind of taboo.
He has a shirt on. The thing with Gamer Goo is like, sometimes you be sweating when you're playing, and Gamer Goo stops having fun. Like in NHL, right? You need those thumbs to do the dekes, right? Or like get your shot. Sometimes we'll be like, oh, I didn't mean to shoot that. My finger slipped. With Gamer Goo, that ain't gonna happen. So the question I want to ask for this segment is, what is your favorite NHL game?
Nostalgic wise, I'd probably say NHL 2004 with Danny Heatley on the cover.
Yeah.
When I was back then, obviously I was just a little kid, but I remember because back then, you weren't playing online, you'd play GM mode and stuff.
Yep.
And they just had a really in-depth system where you could you could level up how your team was traveling, whether it's a bus or a private plane, and there's certain things with that. And then if I had to pick my favorite modern day online NHL, it would definitely be NHL 14. I think that's kind of a typical answer for a lot of people. Just because, like I said, NHL 14, it had the customization, it had the deking that I liked. My play style, it was just a really fun game for me.
So shout out to Gamer Goo for sponsoring that. As I said before, I got someone right now, and my hands are nice and dry for when I'm gaming. Because me and Chris were playing some games earlier, and the Gamer Goo was coming in clutch. So now the last thing I want to discuss with you is I asked you earlier. So let's discuss the 2 loadouts that you usually go with. So let's get into your two-way forward, which I have here. You use Hockey Sense 2, Interceptor 1, and Spinster. So what's behind that one?
So pretty much the height and weight. I go back and forth just depending on how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
I'll go between 5'10" or 6'2". Pretty much for NHL 21. At least the biggest thing that can help any team who's kind of just coming up or trying to get from maybe a top 100 to try and break top 50.
Yeah.
It comes down to defense awareness is just so important, and a lot of people just want to score, right? So they put on shooting, they put on. I see a lot of people wasting badges on passing
Yeah.
It's like you're not gonna notice a big difference.
Mhm.
But if you have if you're playing for even sixes or threes, whatever, and if you don't have like a build, at least one or two of them that have like over 90 defense awareness, you're gonna get crossed up all day. So
Yeah.
pretty much the two builds that I use, because as a defenseman and stuff, I'll use a two-way forward with interceptor and hockey sense, just because it boosts your for a two-way forward you get 95 defense awareness, and then I use spinster just because this year this L1, like the loose puck dekes are really easy to poke this year, but the spin deke works really well, and I use it a lot of time like 2-on-1s, and when I'm not using spinster on a two-way, he only has like 80 deking, so he loses it sometimes.
Yeah.
Where I need it to make sure that it sticks on, and then for my sixes build, the 6'7", 257 pound defensive D man. I found that build on accident. Like, we were one of the first ones to ever use it. We were practicing for the London, like the 3v3 LAN in NHL 20.
Yeah.
And I was waiting for my guys to get on, and I literally just was looking at the player stuff and was trying to see like what stat you could get to 99.
Yeah.
I saw defensive man. I was like, oh, okay, like I'll just make him like super big too. And I just like murdered with it, and I was like, I had no idea that it was that good. And then that's the build that Chad started using.
Yeah.
And he's never switched. He's stayed with that build since then.
Okay.
And it's become a lot more meta now too. You see people using it all the time.
Yeah. So, for those of you that want to improve on defense, his loadout will be on screen. So we're just spreading the tactics here because Chris knows all about it. But yeah, to wrap up, follow the Tropics on Twitter at WGG Tropics. We're gonna start posting there. Follow We Got Game on literally anything at We Got Game _corp, and look for the Tropics, man. They're gonna be even bigger than they already are. So once again, thanks Chris for coming on, the captain of your WGG Tropics. And yeah, look for the future episodes. My name is Nick, and we will see you all in the next one. Peace out, everyone.